Hello and welcome back to the Buck the Trend podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steph, and this is, I don't even know what episode, seven, six?
Six, I believe. I didn't go with
Episode
surnames.
six.
I didn't go with surnames today because I feel like people might know it by now.
I don't know. Maybe they'll get us confused. You're Matt Clutterbuck and I'm Steph Native.
Well, good luck.
That double H would be quite hard, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
But yeah.
absolutely.
Um Also, hi mum and dad. I know you watch this with your Thursday morning coffee, and they always say it's quite nice because it's like we're there having coffee with them. And this is very much what it is for us because you're not at home. So this is us catching up for the day.
No, I am sat in a hotel room, so if I lose signal or I'm a bit of a lag, then that is why. But I can currently still hear you fine in my AirPods, so we're all good to go.
Hopefully we'll not be claiming tech issues this week. Um, but yeah, I mean, I hope that the connection between two places in the UK is better than when we did it in Lanzarote in the UK.
You'd hope, but I'm in Plymouth, so who
Yeah,
knows?
maybe not. Sorry to everyone that lives in Plymouth.
Yeah, sorry, Plymouth. Plymouth. What are you if you're from Plymouth?
Plymptons. I don't actually know.
Plymouth. I don't know. I want to make something up.
Plymonians. That would be quite fun. Plymonians.
You can't say Cornish either because they don't like that.
No, definitely not. Let's not go there. We'll cause a riot. Um,
Definitely
so
Devon.
how's the last 7 days been, Matt?
Um, I don't know. I can't even get past today, to be honest. How have the last 7 days been? Yeah, good. We got back from obviously Lanzarote, back to normality, cold. Um, We had some exciting deliveries with your bike, which we then had to shoot and get fitted, which you can talk us through in a second, I'm sure. And then, yeah, we're all set now, I guess, with your bike, and just need to get a release sorted now.
Yeah, so last week was a bit of a recovery week for me. And that meant that Matt had to deal with a Steph with slightly too much energy and not enough training going on. So he deserves a medal. Um, but yeah, we had the shoot for the launch done on Friday, and obviously it started snowing because why
You
not,
can't say
Britain?
snowing. We had sleet.
I was also in the cafe at this point hiding because I had literally, I think my hands were going to fall off. But yep, so that was fun. I don't think I warmed up all weekend. I was just so cold. And that has been the case since coming back from Lanzarote. The weather here, it's cold to your bones, and we haven't seen the sunshine for a very long time. Um Sunday we went up for a bike fit. So I drove up to Loughborough to see Matt Bottrill, which was awesome. So it was actually my first. Well, I've had a couple of bike fits in the past. It was the first one that we had where we had the opportunity to change, like actually change bits on the bike to make sure that they were like the right length and in the right position and add kind of bottle mounts and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really, really great experience. We were up there taking up his Sunday, so very much appreciated that. Thanks, Matt. I'm really excited to like put the position into practice, I guess, because while we have the ideal position created and mapped out, there is like training that goes into it because riding in TT position and riding in Falero is definitely a skill. Like it's not something that just happens. So this week I've been doing plenty of drills, lots of stretching, lots of rotator cuff work to make sure that I can get into that position and hold it.
Yeah, and it's also a progress thing, isn't it? We're not going straight from 0 to 100. You're not racing a 10-mile time trial on the track or something like that where you can afford to be a bit more aggressive. We're trying to tailor it that you can run a fast marathon off the bike after 180 kilometers, comfortable. I say comfortable, as comfortable as you can be. I guess it probably is comfortable off the bike. So yeah, a lot of time and effort went into that. Thanks to Matt. Thanks for his patience. But also his problem solving, I would say, is probably one of his.
And the big problem is my big swimmer's shoulders. So it was a good task for him to figure out how to crowbar them into some sort of aero shape and get my head down and out of the way. So yeah, it's going to be good this year watching, kind of seeing how that position develops and what more changes we can make to the bike to make it super fast by Kona, because obviously that's the aim.
Okay, so here's one for you, one for our listeners, anyone who wants to ride a time trial bike faster. Give me, I don't know, can be one thing, can be a couple of things that you learn from having the fit. It might not be just this fit, but when you've been fit on a bike, what are your key takeaways?
So I think this is probably very different to the pure cyclists and pure time trialists. Um, Number one, I think you've already mentioned it, it's a process. So my body is super reactive to change. It's a big part of the back injury that I had years ago. And when it's put under too much stress, my back goes into spasm and I basically lose all power in my left leg. So any changes we make have to be incremental and done over time. And we know that. And it's, I guess, a good reminder that everyone's bodies are probably going to be going through something similar. If you change too much too quickly, your body goes into fight or flight mode and something somewhere is going to start hurting. So whatever you walk out of the bike fitter in, there should always be room to improve. And if you've done everything all at once, chances are your heart rate's going to be sky high, things are going to get uncomfy, you'll probably end up with an injury and your power's likely to be decreased, especially if we're looking at that 180k time trial and then running off the bike. But also you've swum before, so your shoulders and your arms are going to be pretty fatigued, which means that there's extra challenge getting into that position. Second, we've got some really cool video of my shoulders relaxed versus activated. And I think I lose like 8 inches of width, which is utterly centimeters.
I'd probably go with centimeters.
Matt's shaking his head. I don't know. People are just chucking out numbers at me. So yeah, that's a lot of space that the air isn't hitting anymore. And obviously the aim is to be able to train to hold the smallest value at all times, but that's not going to happen because that does, as well as mobility, it requires strength. So we're going to be working on that just to get my shoulders out of the way. And then the other one is my head. But in my mind, you need to be able to see where you're going. And you do, but there are ways of, like, especially neck mobility, just getting your head out the way, but still being able to look forwards. And I'd say that's probably in order of ease. The easiest thing is to make incremental changes, followed by training your shoulders and then getting your head out of the way and doing enough neck mobility so that you can do it without causing too much strain. But fundamentally, I need to be able to run a pretty fast marathon off the bike. So whatever we do, it can't compromise my hip position too much.
So yeah, there are two takeaways then. But I think you're
Did
right.
you have any different ones?
No, I think the process one's a good one. Like I say, it might be that you need to go for, not personally, but you might need to go for a couple of fits through the year. And as you progress and you put in the work, that you can get maybe a bit more aggressive each time or a bit more stretched out in a certain area, or even test out different components, helmets, different things like that throughout the process, because it will change. And for you as a professional, that might change with sponsor commitments, whether that's different helmets, because not all helmets will work correctly for your style of riding, your shape on the bike. So it's, I think, tailoring it towards that and expecting it not to be like a one-time fix. I know a lot of people will go maybe annually for like an update and a check. The same as you'd go, like you do personally, is go to the physio and just check on your body and how everything's moving there quite regularly. I think it's good for, yeah, to just do that on a bike, whether that's your road bike, your time trial bike. I think it can be useful. I know I personally would probably benefit. I'm talking like I've had one, I haven't, but I think I would probably benefit quite well from a good fit, considering how uncomfortable I am usually on a bike. But yeah,
Matt's
so
come away from races with some absolute horror stories.
yeah, but a lot of that is training related as well. That's you've got to put in the work training in the position as well, rather than just expecting to be able to turn up on the day and do it really. So yeah, enough about me and my
And him riding at least 90k on a base bar on a TT bike. So
Yeah, I
fun.
think I'll put in a story. I did do an Ironman. I think it wasn't even my first one, but it was my second one. I did with some friends, and I spent the entire second half of the bike leg, so the second 90k, on the base bars because I had spent the first 90k in the bars, in the TT bars, and my back just didn't fancy it anymore. So was spasming, was really uncomfortable. I remember pretty much crying for the last sort of 40, 50k, just wanted to be off that bike and onto the run. So yeah, lessons learned, get a good fit. It's probably worth the money, to be honest. There's plenty of good
Mm.
fitters out there. Just do your research and yeah, that would be my tip.
I think
Tip to
that's a pretty
myself.
good tip. Yeah.
Maybe next time I get myself a time trial bike, maybe that's the first thing I'll do.
He's going to go and get a bike fit and then he's going to train his position. We love personal growth.
Exactly. So yeah, that's been our week. Like I say, I'm currently working away at the moment, but I will be back next week, so we should have clearer and better sound. Um, so shall we move on to our first topic this week, Steph?
Yeah, I'd love to actually. Thanks. And this is one. So I had to do some brainstorming because I was really worried that Matt wasn't going to be able to join us. And this I can't really do without him because he's been such a huge part of it.
You can just
Um,
talk to yourself.
yeah, I'm just going to talk to myself and pretend that there's an audience in front of me. No, anyway, I wanted to bring the story of our brand and how we've created our community and social platform, well, specifically on Instagram, but it's now reaching out. Obviously, we've got a podcast now, and we've got our YouTube channel. Because I think it's something that's obviously growing in popularity with the crossover between athletes and influencers and how that's opening up the industry for so many people. But this is something that we committed to 5 years ago. And I say we because even though it's like my page and very much used to be my personal page, it isn't anymore, right? It's the Steph Bottrill athlete page. So I wanted to give you guys a bit of an insight into behind the scenes, behind the account, and what it's taken to create. And obviously, there's no point me just talking about that on my own because I need the content creator, and that's Matt.
Yeah, I think for me, if we could just take it back to the start. So where did it? I suppose when you were a rower, you were, I don't know how many, you had maybe a couple of thousand followers at that point.
Yeah, so
You're
I think it was about 2000. Um,
and this is Instagram, by the way.
yeah, this is specifically Instagram. So maybe 1,000 to 2,000. And there was a sports brand, well, like a rowing brand called JL, and I was on that like Team JL one year as a result of the platform that I created, which was super cool. But that for me was the first, and I actually think that was when I got my first like brand collaboration. It was the first insight I had to the opportunities that social could open up, and this was back in 2015, I think, which was quite a while ago. But yeah, that was like the first moment of, oh, actually, if I were to do something in the future, this could be a way forward. And actually, for me, it was how I got into marketing as a role and as a job. But yeah, so I guess that was that, and that was 1,000 to 2,000 followers.
Yeah, and so I say you started this off. So how did you start off building that brand then from, I suppose it was your movement away from rowing and into the what next?
Yeah, I have always loved telling stories. So I kind of I talked a lot as my rowing career ended about the end of that career, and I was experiencing quite a lot of anxiety at the time, and panic attacks were a pretty frequent thing in my life. And I shared that quite openly across my channel. So it's something that I've always been interested in sharing my story to help others feel slightly less alone. And when I made the transition, I wanted to carry that on. So I wasn't sharing anything to with the intention of building a platform. However, I was going through something that I'd seen so little about that I wanted to share it in anticipation of others transitioning out of sport. And I did some like super cool things. So I cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats and I documented that. And then I flew to New Zealand for 2 months and I documented that. I think across both instances, I had people unfollowing me because they didn't want to see it anymore and they didn't want to see me traveling and they didn't want to be a part of that since like I'd left rowing, which is totally fine because it's not why they were following in the first place. But it was a, an outlet for me to tell stories and share what I was going through in as much of a positive way as I could, but keeping it authentic.
Yeah, and I think it was. I mean, you'll probably tell me otherwise, but I'm sure it was a difficult part in your life, that transition sort of period, and whether that's, I don't know, leaving a career, a sport, even sort of injuries. I guess people can kind of relate to that. I know I certainly could, and I think that's why a lot of people sort of started the journey because people could relate to that, the things you were feeling and going through, along through that sort of process.
Yeah, it was hard. And like I said, there was so little about it because quite often the athletes would transition and then disappear and choose to, which is totally fair enough, right? Having experienced what I did, you just want to turn your back on the world. And quite frankly, that's why I flew to New Zealand because I just wanted to get away from everything. And then I got there and I was like, actually, this place is so cool. I want to document it so that I can go back and read it. And somewhere in this house, I've got a whole book that I wrote while I was out there. It was my diary, literally every day for 2 months. Um, but after that, I'd signed up for my Ironman, and again, that was part of the healing for me. So we're still in this period where I'm posting on social media because it was cathartic for me to work through what I was feeling. I was now in a full-time job, which I had not done before. Turning up to work at 9 and leaving at 5, and I was absolutely exhausted. But it was fun for me to experience world away from structured sport and finding this new sport. So I was doing so much cycling and I absolutely loved it. And the cycling community has always been huge on Instagram, and we started to see it build then. So I was fortunate enough to get onto Team Alpecin after my first Ironman, just heading into 2020, which was amazing. So that got me my road bike upgrade at the time. We were partnered with Canyon and Abus and I can't remember, ASOS, I think it was. So I had this whole wardrobe sent out to me for the year, and I got to continue telling the story alongside Alpecin for that kind of. I think it ended up being 6 months because COVID threw a whole lot into the mix, and we didn't get to do any of the trips that we wanted to. But yeah, I think I was starting to see even more the opportunities were still there and were still open. And I think the pandemic actually just expedited that for everyone because we were all just on our phones so much more because there was, quite frankly, so little else to do that we were allowed to. So what else were you going to do but sit on your phone at home while you couldn't leave the house to go shopping and go and buy your toilet roll?
Watch Tiger King and whatever else
Oh
was.
God, there was some good TV, wasn't there?
Yeah, I remember
We watched
those days.
so many episodes of Hell's Kitchen as well.
Yeah, we did probably far too much that we'd like to admit, really.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think that I basically from the start have just told the story of whatever period of life that I've been in. And we went from Team Alpecin to Movistar, um, which feels like a lifetime ago. So this all came about through Zwift racing, and Movistar was starting up their e-racing team, and I went through the application process, which was utterly vile. So I think for 2 weeks we had to do, was it two test races a week or three, one test race a week, as well as racing the normal Zwift stuff. So it was like 2 1 hour maxes a week, basically. And they live streamed it, and it was just so much fun. And yeah, that opened up both the kind of Instagram community, but also the Zwift community as well. Again, through COVID, which by this point we were living in Herefordshire. So this was my social time was racing on Zwift because we lived so far away from everyone else. Um,
But but I think there was a great community there, wasn't there? And I mean,
yeah,
not just the girls you were on with Movistar. There was a great community throughout the whole Swift Race League, was it, or whatever it was
yeah,
called. Yeah, like relationships there that you still speak to today, and good. Some of the girls have gone on to some great things. And then I'm sure there's still a lot still doing the Swift Race League now today. So
absolutely. And it is so fun to see where everyone's lives have taken them. And I get to see them share their stories as well, which is fantastic because I think part of doing all of the Zwift racing was we all essentially had our own brands online. That was, yes, it was us as an athlete, but it was who we were representing while we were racing virtually, which tied in really nicely with this kind of e-racing. And the growth of Instagram at the time. And it was a period that we noticed a huge amount of growth. So I distinctly remember October 2021, the day that I won Portugal, Ironman Portugal age group, just to clarify, overall female age group at Ironman Portugal, I gained 1,000 followers. So I went from 5,000 to 6,000 followers, and it feels quite surreal saying that now when we're kind of up at 60 odd thousand. But it was a huge day for, I mean, very little actual social effort on my part. I just had to race an Ironman, race it quite fast, which was quite a lot of effort. And that couple, so the win coupled with the growth that we saw, we were like, this tool as so social media as a tool is something that we need to develop if Steph wants to turn professional. And that win in Portugal was a moment for me where I realized that it would be like, I thought, actually, you know what, I can turn pro, and I don't know when it will happen, and it will happen when I'm ready. But having a community online and a well-established brand in the moment that we pull the pin and I take my license is something that's going to be really important. So I think up until that moment, I told stories of the time of life that I was in. And then from October 21 onwards, we became very intentional with what we were sharing online. And we had a goal to grow a community and create a brand and create a presence that was something that we felt represented us well.
and that's where I probably had to hone my skills uh, into started off just being able to film whilst riding the bike, which to me I could probably barely take my hands off the handlebars at that point. So yeah, there was definitely a learning curve for us both, but also I think um, learning from others in terms of seeing what the top sort of athletes were doing. And I don't think there weren't many. There were a lot of professional triathletes, cyclists. A lot of people still weren't using social media and still aren't today. But you could learn a lot from the guys and girls, sorry, who were doing it well.
Yeah.
And I think not that we studied it or looked into too much detail, but you kind of see what works with other people. Um, and I think we kind of were able to sort of use that and help what we were going to do in the direction we were going to go with it. Whether that was, I don't know, different shots, angles, things that worked well on social media that we would be able to sort of tap into. For me personally, it was kind of a big learning curve. I'm not particularly, I don't feel I'm the most creative, not in terms of imaginative and with a camera, but you kind of just learn on the job, really, don't you? So
I actually completely disagree. Matt has some incredible ideas, and everything that's shot, well, almost everything that we shoot and post on Instagram is Matt. It's his work that he's kind of done behind the camera. I'm the subject. I just have to exist. I have an easy job. Um, but I think
stop, stop.
one
I
of
was
the
going to say,
first things we did was set goals. So we had Matt's goal was, okay, I need to level up my content capturing. Like, I need to be more comfortable behind a camera. and then I needed to be more comfortable in front of the camera because I hated it. I just would freeze. I don't know what it was. I was so I used to stand in front of rooms of people for my job. Like I'd run conferences, but being in front of a camera was terrifying. I just hated it. So we both had work that we needed to do on our respective sides, but we also started to get kind of a bit more meticulous with our growth goals with the platform itself. So we wanted to see growth, and I actually think we did study the app, and we studied what features they were bringing out and what was working well, and not just from athletes as well, but those kind of the influencer figures within the community that were seeing huge amounts of growth who weren't famous. So I think there is the difference between, you've got those who are famous for various reasons, who just have a big following. Then you've got the athletes who I guess kind of fall into that famous category because they're famous outside of socials. But then you've just got normal people who are extraordinary because they've created these platforms, but they've been able to grow and they've been able to create their communities, and they're the ones that we can really learn from. And how do you create your own personal brand? Because they're the ones that have seen growth from nothing.
Yeah, I still think, I mean, when we still talk about it to this day, I still think there's a space, more of a space for the sort of collaboration side of things and crossovers between different sports, influencer type of styles, and just in terms of creating content which is fun, exciting, but also with an element of sport and things that we enjoy. And I don't think we see enough of that. And I think there is huge gain there. I mean, I don't know. Imagine Matthew van der Poel, I don't know, training with someone in a completely different sport or lifestyle, and just I think it would just create really fun content. But
I
maybe
completely
that's
agree.
just maybe that's just what I want to see.
It would be fun. So a friend of mine from school is actually Jazz Sawyers, who's incredible long jumper, and we don't speak often, but when we do, we find it is always a laugh when we talk about how our training differs, because she is obviously training to run down a runway, hit like a board super hard, and then launch herself into the air. Doesn't last that long. She is so powerful, but for like some seconds, whereas I'm training to race over like 8 or 9 hours. So the what we're asking for our bodies is completely different. And I would literally love to do a long jump session for a day. And I think it'd be so fun to just get, yeah, even another athlete to do another athlete's sport, to just humanize everything. We always say we want to see a normal people Olympic Games. I don't think there's any reason that you couldn't live that out through social media. But for anyone who is wanting to build their socials, because I truly believe that it's an important part of a business. So the business of a professional athlete has like so many different legs, and there is absolutely the being athlete, the athlete thing, the training, the recovering, the racing side of things. But then there is the business side of the professional athlete, which is much more about sponsorships and brand deals and creating your own brand, to make money at the end of the day, because I have to fund being an athlete. And the industry is changing. I think a couple of years ago, it was all about the performance and it was all about the results. But now we have the opportunity as new professionals and those who are aspiring professionals, or even those that just love the sport. Like Kelly Brannigan on Instagram is such an amazing person to follow. She is an age group athlete who is creating brilliant content, super entertaining. And that's not because she is a pro or is turning pro in the next year, but she's brilliant at it and is making a life out of it. And I absolutely love that. I think we should be doing more of it.
I personally think that the people who you see do it best are the people who actually truly enjoy it. There are a lot of people, and you see a lot of these influencers who maybe do an Ironman, do a marathon, but they don't really enjoy it. You can just see the is that you calling me?
Sorry, tech issues. Someone's ringing Matt. But yeah,
Who's actually my dad.
Hi, Mike. Sorry, Matt can't answer the phone right now. He's recording a podcast.
Yeah, sorry, I should have put do not disturb on.
I think you're completely right, though. Like, it's while I love that the sport is growing and we have so many more people from different backgrounds coming in, the content that is the most fun to follow is those that are doing it multiple times and they're coming back and they're learning their lessons, and then they go on to use the content to tell that story. That's what I
Yeah,
find super
yeah,
compelling.
and they're also passing on that knowledge, and that's what I like to think maybe we can try and or you can try and do is pass on that knowledge you've learned because, like I say, we've all started from somewhere. No one becomes good at something overnight, and if you do, then
Yeah, good for you.
yeah, let us know how.
So I think for anyone who is wanting to kind of create their presence on social media, spend time thinking about your brand and the story that you want to tell. So, Steph, on social media, we decided that we wanted to be as authentic as possible on Instagram. However, I am not completely what there is more to me than my Instagram suggests. There are things that we were very intentional that we didn't want to share. I think that is also important. You're allowed to safeguard parts of yourself that you don't put onto the internet. And that's it kind of, yeah, I think it's really important. You're allowed to exist outside of the internet, and you can be very intentional with what you do share. But I also wouldn't pretend to be someone that I'm not. So choose what it is that you want to share, choose your brand messaging, choose who you want to be online, and probably, like I say, keep it quite authentic and true to who you are, because otherwise you're going to slip up. And then stay consistent with it. So that's consistent with posting, consistent with your messaging. Just showing up is really important. And it's something that as training gets hard, I definitely struggle with, which is why both Matt and I are kind of in control of my social media, because deep in an Ironman block, I'm not writing any captions for posts. My brain ceases to exist beyond the capabilities of training. So planning ahead for those times is really useful. But yeah, so I think stay consistent.
And I will just say, you haven't gone to AI yet.
No, 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 no. We are not AI. Our
You
Instagram is very much us.
you write all your posts. You dictate what is said, and the messaging, I think, is a
Yeah.
key thing for the
So Matt gets the content and I write the words. Is the
yeah.
balance that we have. And then I guess along with the consistency is just staying true to your brand. And that's for everything from the voice, like your voice. So I don't literally mean like my voice that's in the thing that's coming out of my mouth, but how you're speaking, how you're writing your captions, whether you use emojis or not. Like, actually just see it as a business, and every business has their own brand voice and their tone of voice and all that sort of stuff. You're allowed to create that. And it's a way of, I guess, distancing yourself from your social media a little bit. And it allows you to have a little bit more creative freedom because you're posting with an intention, as opposed to like, oh, this is what I did today. Like, no, tell your story and
Yeah.
say it in your voice.
And I think what I'd like to add to that is you talked about consistency and things like that. I think just starting is the key one. Obviously, you might not have everything nailed down of what you want, but just start. Like the the hardest part is starting, and people. I'm big one for it is just caring what people think, but just start doing what you want to do, and I think that's probably the hardest place to sort of begin with is to start. But also on top of that, I think is imagine what you'd like to see on social media, and then try and sort of create that. Because if you want to watch it, and maybe your family, your friends, close circle, they also kind of want to see that, or your target audience do, then you're kind of in the right direction already. Like I always try and think, would I actually like to watch that, or would I like that on Instagram or something? And if the answer is no, often probably won't post it.
Yeah. And like 100%, just do it. Create content that you like. But honestly, we don't put a reel up if one of us doesn't like it. It's as simple as that. If we create stuff that we like. Um, and that's not necessarily always the right thing to do, but we are also, well, Matt is basically the target audience because he's a non-professional triathlete. And there is always fallout. And it's something we've experienced. Like, we have had quite a lot of resentment, and we know that there are people that don't like the content that we produce, but quite frankly, they're also not the market that we're targeting it towards. And our friends support us, and they understand how important it is to us that we've created this, and that's the only thing that we really care about. So just do it, because there will be people that don't like it, but screw them.
Yeah, exactly. Just do you and enjoy it.
You do you.
So I think, yeah, that wraps up a bit. I mean, we could talk about social media and everything like that for days, but we won't overdo it. I'm sure we can get onto another topic similarly at some point later on down the line. But yeah, I think no one's an expert. Like I say, you just nothing has to be perfect, and nothing we do is completely curated. It's sometimes the bit of rough and ready, sort of with video footage, etc. Doesn't have to be 4K amazing quality, as long as it's sort of interesting, and just go with it.
If this has sparked any questions for you, send them through, and we'll plan in another kind of social media branding style podcast. But hopefully it's been interesting and giving you a bit of an insight to what goes on in the chaos behind the Instagram account.
And if you don't follow Steph on Instagram already,
What
why
are you
not?
doing?
But it's at Steph Clutterbuck for those who don't.
Yeah, please go and follow. I really appreciate it. And like my posts, I think Instagram is always waves. Sometimes engagement is great and sometimes it's not. And for those of us who kind of created a living off it, it really does mean a lot to us when you engage with our stuff. So like, comment, save posts, share them. It's all really appreciated.
Yeah, and I think that works both ways as well. I think we could do better, or you can do better anyway, with engaging with other accounts as well.
I didn't realize this was a Give Steph feedback podcast, but so fine.
Sorry, Steph. No, I think, like I say, we've learned over time that obviously we get a lot of private messages and direct messages on Instagram, but I don't know, maybe people don't feel it's a safe space to comment on people's profiles. I know I personally probably wouldn't. But it's fine. It's fine to comment on people's profiles as long as you're nice and civil. We'll usually respond. So yeah,
Yeah, no trolling, please.
get enough of that.
But yeah, I don't need any more.
Right.
You have some questions.
Yes, I have lots of questions. No,
Okay.
we had a couple of questions sent in this week. I'm trying to remember. First one, I think, can't remember who it was, sorry, but we had a question regarding a 20-minute FTP test cycling,
Mm-hmm.
and whether our backgrounds, I mean, you can probably bring in a swimming background as well, but mainly rowing background, how they sort of correlate, whether that be a standard Olympic sort of distance 2,000-meter rowing test, or a 30-minute rate 20, which is, if anyone follows me, I tend to do that quite regularly at the moment. And I think we kind of answered it together, and it was more on the lines of, well, I actually think it kind of correlates more to a 5,000-meter test, because in time you're looking anywhere from 15 to sort of 20 minutes ish. But also the rating, so the cadence, I guess you'd call it, on a rowing machine compared to a bike, is sort of higher and more akin to it. So your heart rate is sort of quite high from the start. So I don't know where I've gone with that question, but yeah, I'd just probably say it kind of relates more to that. And how does sort of transition from from rowing to cycling, in terms of what have you taken across?
Yeah, so I think rowing makes you really, really powerful on a bike. Basically, like the I I don't do FTP tests anymore. I hope my coach doesn't listen, and next week I find myself with an FTP test. But I would personally need to do, well, either a lab test or a full hour to get that threshold. So, I mean, there's so many questions about whether it's valid or not anyway, but my ability to produce power really skews the results. So for example, this was back in my Zwift racing days. I probably couldn't do it anymore. But on a ramp test, my FTP was estimated at like 335 watts, which is utterly mind-blowing. And there is no chance that even at that point, when I was doing these Zwift race every week, that I would be able to hold 335 watts for an hour. I think my best 20-minute FTP estimation was like 325 watts, which again is super high. And so I just have the ability to produce power. Rowing is a power-based sport that comes from power generated through your legs and your hips. So I have quads. I lifted weights for years. I can work really hard on a bike for 20 minutes because we did so much work around that time. 2K test is 7 minutes. And like you say, we had the half hours. I was doing 30-minute max bikes pretty much every week because the low rate, 30-minute rate 20 would snap my spine in half. But yeah, I'd say if you're a rower, you can ride a bike, an indoor bike, very hard.
And it's not just the ability to produce watts. I think secondly, it's the ability to suffer. You learn a lot about sort of putting your hand in the fire and sort of holding it there. But I think that's the nature of the training. Like I say, the longest probably training sessions 90 minutes, maybe 2 hour at some point, but you're not really going over 90 minutes very often per session. So it's a very different training style, but I think that puts you in good stead for cycling. Like I say, your lung capacity, leg power production. So yeah, I think puts you in really good stead there.
Especially over the short distances. Next question.
Oh, I've forgotten what the question was. Can you get back?
I can. So it was about balancing training across a week, and so for a 70.3 or an Ironman, like how many sessions of each discipline and the inclusion of strength sessions. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I was going to say, I mean, first thing to look at is your available sort of, well, where you're at and your available time to train in terms of, let's just say, for instance, I don't know, myself, I've only got, let's say, 10 hours through the week to train for an Ironman. Do I want to spend maybe 3 sessions, so 3-4 hours worth of that 10 hours lifting weights? Probably not. So I'd suggest at first port of call, train the specific sort of swim, bike, run. Obviously, look at your weaknesses, maybe put a bit more emphasis on the weakness. Like I say, there's a whole host of training plans, coaches, things like that can probably help with this. But understanding your body first and where you're currently at, but then utilizing sort of, like I said, yes, gym sessions can be great and they can definitely have their place within the sport. But if you've got a limited amount of time and you want to increase your swim, bike, run, then you've probably got to be doing swim, bike, run. Well, do you agree?
Yes. However, so my thinking around them is slightly different. Obviously, coming up as an age grouper, I had to do this balance. And in my last year as an age grouper, I probably trained 14 hours a week on average. So it wasn't huge, it wasn't crazy volume. I think there are phases throughout the year. So through winter, when one, the weather's cold, 2, going outside is just much less appealing. I think there is usually more space to add in strength work and is actually super important, especially if you're just starting triathlon or you're just starting running, for example, because that's the one where you're most likely to get injured. Countering it with weights is super important for injury prevention. I also think through the winter is actually the time that you can do less swimming. For a lot of people, it's the highest barrier to entry of the 3 disciplines because you have to travel to a pool, you have to get up early in the morning to go before work, and usually like super early before work. I think you need to be swimming at least once a week, but I'd say if you're looking at like a bit of a balance beam through winter, you could probably reduce the swim and do an additional weight session. But then as you get through to summer, you drop that back down. And I would always advocate for doing a weight session a week. I think especially for female athletes, it's really, really important to look after your bones and ensure that kind of your health, like keep healthy bone density and stuff like that. But you would if doing strength means that you can't go for a swim, then you probably want to go for that swim, especially through like swim field can come quite late towards races, so you can actually just really load the swimming in the last kind of 2 months before a race, and you'll see a huge amount of gains in a way that just doesn't work for biking and running. So for cycling and running, you definitely need to have a consistent base through winter to be able to ramp it up as you get closer to races. But I think it's the swimming and the weights that you can actually play around with.
Yeah, no, I'd also agree with that. So yeah, I think well we've answered it quite differently, but also quite a bit of overlap. But I think it's kind of what works for you and what you enjoy doing. If you enjoy doing your weight sessions a couple of times a week, then do them. There's no harm in them. Just be careful of, I guess, going too hard and overloading maybe your legs and then doing a run the next day. Maybe you want to do upper body and then a run the next day, for instance, or maybe swimming and then with your upper body type of mixing it around rather than having sort of back to back load days.
Agreed.
So yeah, case closed.
Done. We fixed the world. Were there any more questions, or is it to the what the buck?
Think. Well, we've had two, so I think we'll leave it there.
I think we're good.
And we'll.
Okay, so the what the buck moment this week. Actually, no. First of all, update on Rodri Davis.
Yeah.
He
Was
is
it
it
not
Davis?
Morgan Davies? No,
We can't remember.
something
Anyway,
Welsh.
Wales did lose at the weekend.
Jones.
Yeah. Wales did lose at the weekend by 7 points, which meant he had to run another 7 miles.
He did get lucky though because they scored a penalty try, so he had what 7 miles less.
Yeah, so it was going to be 14 miles, and then like 2 minutes before the end, they got penalty try, so then it was 7.
But I did watch his Instagram account, and he did do it. He did it as I think he ran and then played American football or something because it was the NFL Super Bowl, wasn't it?
Oh, why? So fun.
But I'm not sure. Is it a break this week? And then it's probably England or Ireland or Scotland. Don't even know who
So
we've got next.
might be a big score next time. Might be another
Yeah,
long one.
yeah. He might have to. Yeah, dust off
Especially
his.
as England just beat France, and France are the ones that absolutely smashed Wales. So it doesn't look good for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, this week's What the Buck, I'm super excited about. So it's also one of the stories from the games last year, actually. Georgia Hunter Bell, who is Georgia Bell, the duathlete on Instagram, which I find absolutely hilarious, just won the Wanna Make a Mile out in the Millrose Games in New York. I think it's New York, in a time of 4:23. She's the fourth British woman ever to win it. And she won it in a PB, which is like mental because it's so early in the year. She was working full time this time last year. But I just find this mind blowing. So she was doing duathlon. Well, actually, she was at college in the States and quit track running. She just kind of fell out of love with it. Basically stopped sport. Then COVID happened and she started running again as a way to keep fit because, like so many of us, there was not much else to do, and started doing duathlons. Went and represented GB as part of the age group team at the World Championships, and like obviously was running really, really, really well. Messaged her old coach. He started coaching her again. She started to get starts at these elite events this time last year. Qualified for Paris and then comes in third while on sabbatical from work. So she was still technically working. She just taken some unpaid leave. And yeah, is now absolutely smashing the world scene. And I find it so inspiring and so awesome. And she's so wonderful. I followed her on social media for ages and we've connected a couple of times. It's just, yeah, I love these stories of people that just come out and do amazing things and have decided that no, I don't want to settle for what I was doing. I wasn't happy, and now I'm just going to go and change the world.
Yeah, and we absolutely love her energy and a smile. So well done, Georgia.
Yeah, and also her ability to curl her hair. I messaged her this. She makes it look so easy, and mine is like God knows what all the time. So just happy athletes are fast athletes, and full credit to her for taking control and absolutely smashing it. Love it.
Perfect. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I hadn't actually seen the result, so thank you for bringing that one up. And what did you
That's
say?
right.
4:26,
4:23.
4:23.
And she's actually racing this weekend, Saturday. It's the Keeley Classic. And she's going for the indoor British 1500-meter record. So I'm pretty sure it's being shown on the BBC actually. So tune in,
Well,
watch away.
I will tune in.
Good. I think that probably wraps us up for today.
Yeah, I think we're at quite a long one today, so apologies for that.
Yeah.
And
Hope you've got some
hopefully,
long car journeys to listen to.
yeah, and hopefully this has come out okay. And apologies for my tiredness, but we'll be back energized next week and together. So
We certainly will, back in this lovely podcast room. So send us through any questions. Please make sure you give us a 5-star rating on wherever you listen. We really appreciate it.
yeah. And thank you for all the love so far on the podcast. We've had lots of messages, lots of reviews. So thank you very much.
We love you guys. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.